In a world where love seems like a calculated game, where power and revenge collide, there's a story that will make you question everything you know about relationships. Imagine a man so broken by betrayal that he decides to rewrite his own destiny, not through passion, but through a dangerous plan that could destroy everything. Thomas Brown had it all: wealth, success, a perfect life. But when the woman he loved walked away, something inside him shattered. Instead of healing, he crafted a revenge so cold, so precise, it would make even the most calculated strategist pause. His target? A simple gardener named Sarah, who becomes an unexpected weapon in his elaborate scheme. But here's the twist that will keep you glued to your screen. Sometimes the most carefully planned revenge becomes the very thing that transforms you completely. What happens when a marriage built on lies starts to reveal a truth neither person expected? When a man who believed he could control every single moment of his life suddenly finds himself vulnerable? This isn't just another love story. This is a journey of two people caught in a web of betrayal, survival, and unexpected redemption. A story that proves that true strength isn't about controlling others, but about having the courage to change yourself. Want to know how a cold-hearted businessman and a humble gardener become something neither of them ever imagined? How a single decision can turn your entire world upside down? Then buckle up, because this story is about to take you on a ride you won't forget. Don't miss a single moment. Hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and share this incredible journey with everyone who loves a story that breaks all the rules. In the heart of Seattle, Thomas Brown stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse, his reflection a stark silhouette against the city's glittering nightscape. The metropolis pulsed with life below, a mirror of his own restless spirit. Every brick of his luxurious empire had been laid with precision, carved out of ambition and an unyielding desire to control his destiny. But tonight, the opulence felt hollow. A simmering rage consumed him from within, fueled by the memory of Rebecca Lewis, the woman who had shattered his perfect world. Months ago, she had walked away, choosing a rival businessman who promised adventure over the stable future Thomas had meticulously planned. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was a public spectacle that wounded his pride more deeply than any physical blow. A bitter laugh escaped his lips. Excitement, she had called it. Thomas had invested everything, his time, his heart, his dreams, into building a future they would share. And in a moment, she had discarded him like an inconvenient piece on a strategic chessboard. The humiliation burned, a constant reminder of his vulnerability. But tonight was different. Tonight, Thomas had a plan of revenge so calculated it would make Rebecca rue the day she left him. His strategy was elegant in its simplicity. Marry a woman who was her complete opposite, not for love, but for a statement. He would find someone humble, authentic, everything Rebecca was not. The next morning, he wandered through his expansive mansion grounds, the manicured landscape a testament to his controlled world. The garden breathed with life, flowers swaying, birds chirping, a symphony of natural beauty. And there she was, Sarah Cooper, the gardener, kneeling amidst the greenery. Her movements were deliberate and graceful. Soil-covered hands worked with a quiet dedication that immediately caught Thomas's attention. Sunlight danced on her face, revealing a beauty that was raw and unpolished, nothing like Rebecca's manufactured elegance. "Good morning, Mr. Brown," Sarah said, her voice soft and respectful, breaking the morning's tranquility. "Good morning, Sarah," he responded, her name carrying a weight of unexpected intrigue. When she mentioned she had been caring for the garden for almost 2 years, Thomas barely listened. His mind was already racing with possibilities. Sarah represented everything Rebecca was not. Genuine, hardworking, unpretentious. She was more than just a gardener. She was becoming his unexpected instrument of revenge. In the days that followed, Thomas began to see Sarah differently. Each interaction was a calculated step towards his ultimate goal, a chess move in a game of emotional retribution. Thomas's interactions with Sarah grew more frequent, revealing layers of her life. She was an only child, shouldering the burden of caring for her chronically ill mother. Medical treatments consumed her modest earnings, yet she never complained, working tirelessly in the garden with quiet determination. One afternoon, as Sarah organized her gardening tools, Thomas approached her with calculated precision. Sarah, I need to discuss something important, he began, his tone a mix of firmness and subtle uncertainty. Intrigued, Sarah listened as Thomas unveiled his unconventional proposal. Marriage? Not out of love, but as a strategic arrangement. He would provide complete medical care for her mother and generous financial compensation in exchange for a contractual marriage designed to prove a point to his ex-fiancée. Sarah's initial reaction was disbelief. This isn't right, she argued, arms crossed. You want to manipulate people for revenge. It's more complicated, Thomas countered. I need this, and you need help for your mother. Her eyes narrowed, recognizing the transactional nature of the proposition. A hollow deal, she declared, her principles wrestling with her desperate circumstances. That night, Thomas sent a detailed medical report and contract to Sarah's home, understanding her internal conflict. The next morning, she arrived with the envelope, her decision made. You're a cold man, Mr. Brown, she said firmly, but I won't let my mother suffer because of my pride. I accept, but only for her. Thomas nodded, believing he had everything meticulously planned. Sarah, however, felt an unsettling mix of relief and foreboding, sensing she had just entered a complex narrative far beyond a simple contract. Thomas observed Sarah with calculated precision, seeing her as the perfect instrument in his elaborate plan. What he couldn't foresee was how this strategic move would unleash unforeseen consequences beyond his meticulous control. The event hall blazed with sophistication, a carefully orchestrated stage for Thomas's public declaration. Every detail, from the lavish buffet to the immaculate decor, was designed to make a statement. Seattle's elite watched, anticipating drama. When Sarah entered alongside Thomas, the room froze. She wore a simple blue dress that spoke of understated elegance, standing in stark contrast to the ostentatious gown surrounding her. Her modest hairstyle and nervous posture betrayed her discomfort in this unfamiliar world. Just smile, Thomas whispered. I'll handle everything. Rebecca Lewis dominated the scene in a bold red dress, her presence a deliberate provocation. Her malicious smile promised confrontation as she approached Thomas. What an, interesting choice of fiancé, Rebecca remarked, her tone dripping with subtle mockery. Sarah is authentic and loyal, Thomas countered sharply. Everything you're not. Sarah, initially overwhelmed, gradually found her strength. When a pretentious woman questioned her gardening profession, she responded with quiet dignity. An honest job, she stated firmly, surprising her interrogator. As the evening progressed, Sarah's genuine nature began winning unexpected allies. Her authenticity slowly neutralized the room's initial judgment, revealing a strength Thomas hadn't anticipated. Thomas watched Sarah with growing intrigue. She was defying his expectations, displaying a quiet strength that both unsettled and fascinated him. She wasn't merely playing a role, she was emerging as her own person. On the balcony, Rebecca confronted Thomas, her true colors emerging. This marriage is a sham, she hissed, challenging his choices. Thomas remained unmoved, asserting his independence with calm determination. Returning to the hall, Thomas found Sarah near the drinks table. Her resilience caught him off guard. Surviving, she said with a subtle smile that hinted at hidden depths. In that moment, Thomas realized Sarah was far more complex than he had initially perceived. The evening marked a turning point. Sarah had navigated a hostile environment with unexpected grace, while Thomas began to see his carefully constructed plan might not unfold exactly as he'd imagined. Sarah's first morning in Thomas's mansion felt like entering a foreign world. The enormous, immaculate space felt more like a cold museum than a home. A stern housekeeper's formal greeting underscored her outsider status. The breakfast table, laden with exotic fruits and refined dishes, symbolized the vast chasm between Sarah's previous life and her current reality. Every polished surface and perfectly arranged item reminded her of the dramatic transformation her life had undergone. Sarah sat at the breakfast table, acutely aware of the staff's scrutinizing glances. To them, she was still the gardener, someone who belonged among flowers, not at this elegant setting. Her smile masked her inner nervousness, a delicate armor against their silent judgment. Thomas entered, impeccably dressed and seemingly oblivious to her discomfort. I hope you slept well, he said, pouring coffee while scrolling through his phone. Different, Sarah replied, struggling to articulate the surreal sensation of being surrounded by luxury, yet feeling profoundly out of place. He mentioned an evening event with his associates, instructing her to look comfortable and confident. When Sarah questioned how exactly she was supposed to achieve this, Thomas's response was dismissive. Just be polite and smile. Her sharp retort remained unspoken, swallowed with her coffee. Throughout the day, Sarah attempted to establish a routine in the mansion. Each effort underscored her outsider status. The staff remained professionally distant, their forced respect barely concealing their skepticism. She overheard whispered conversations suggesting her marriage was nothing more than a temporary arrangement, each word a quiet humiliation. The evening's dinner became another test of her resilience. Wearing an expensive dress that felt alien to her true self, Sarah navigated conversations with practiced politeness. An accidental wine spill triggered a sarcastic comment from an associate, prompting Thomas to coldly whisper a correction. "I'm not a perfect doll, Thomas," she responded, meeting his gaze with unexpected defiance. The tension between them crackled with unspoken complexity. Returning to the mansion, Sarah could no longer contain her emotions. The day's accumulated pressures threatened to overwhelm her carefully maintained composure. The living room became a battlefield of unspoken truths. Sarah confronted Thomas with raw honesty, challenging the transactional nature of their marriage. "You want me as a trophy," she declared, her voice vibrating with emotion. "But I won't be treated like I'm less than human." Thomas was taken aback by her boldness. "You knew the terms of our agreement," he countered, but Sarah cut through his defenses. "You used my desperation," she said, stepping closer. "You only care about how I fit into your plan, not who I am as a person." Her words landed like a precise blow. For the first time, Thomas found himself without a ready response. Sarah walked away, leaving him alone with his turbulent thoughts. The silence was charged with an unresolved tension that went beyond their initial arrangement. During their drive to a coastal charity event, an unexpected shift began to emerge. The usual rigid atmosphere between them softened slightly. Thomas attempted conversation, surprised by Sarah's sharp, witty responses. He found himself secretly admiring her ability to match his verbal sparring. At the hotel, Sarah was presented with a luxurious suite overlooking the ocean. The stunning view momentarily took her breath away, though she quickly reminded herself not to be swept up by the temporary glamour. When she descended to the lobby in a dress that perfectly balanced simplicity and elegance, Thomas couldn't help but notice her natural grace. The ballroom pulsed with an artificial elegance. Wealthy guests adorned in designer suits and sparkling jewelry moved like carefully choreographed dancers, their smiles as polished as their expensive accessories. Sarah felt her familiar discomfort rising, but she took a deep breath, determined to navigate this unfamiliar world with dignity. Thomas seemed different tonight, less controlling, more observant. His usual rigid demeanor had softened, allowing Sarah to relax her defenses slightly. During a quiet moment at a secluded table, an unexpected intimacy emerged as they began sharing fragments of their personal histories. "What was your life like before all of this?" Thomas asked, his curiosity genuine and unexpected. Sarah's response revealed a life of quiet resilience. She spoke of growing up in a humble neighborhood, losing her father young, and supporting her mother through challenging times. Her voice carried an unspoken strength that intrigued Thomas. When she turned the question back to him, Thomas surprised her with rare vulnerability. He described growing up under immense pressure, thrust into leadership after his father's death, and the complicated relationship with Rebecca that he had believed would be his escape from endless responsibilities. "Sounds like we both had to grow up too fast," Sarah remarked softly. Her empathy caught Thomas off guard, creating a moment of genuine connection that transcended their initial contractual arrangement. Their fragile moment of understanding was sharply interrupted by Rebecca's dramatic entrance. With calculated precision, she approached their table, her provocative smile a clear challenge. "Sarah," she began, her tone dripping with false sweetness, "you look lovely. Thomas certainly has good taste." Sarah, displaying remarkable composure, matched Rebecca's verbal sparring with a calm, confident response that momentarily stunned both Thomas and Rebecca. The confrontation with Rebecca tested Sarah's resolve. With remarkable poise, she responded to Rebecca's provocative comment about her sudden social elevation. "Change can be significant," Sarah said calmly, "but authenticity always stands out regardless of the setting." Rebecca, caught off guard by Sarah's confident response, found herself momentarily speechless. Thomas intervened, dismissing Rebecca with a sharp request to leave. As she walked away, visibly frustrated, Sarah maintained her composure, catching a look of unexpected admiration in Thomas's eyes. "Well played," Thomas remarked, a faint smile playing on his lips. "I won't let anyone disrespect me," Sarah replied firmly. In that moment, something fundamental shifted in Thomas's perception of her. She was no longer just a strategic piece in his elaborate plan, but a complex, resilient individual. The morning following the event began quietly. Sarah sought solace in the garden, the one place where she still felt truly herself. The housekeeper approached, handing her an anonymous envelope that would change everything. Inside, a chilling message awaited. "You will never be one of us. Stop pretending before it's too late." Sarah's initial impulse was to hide the note, fearful that Thomas would see it as a weakness. As days passed, more threatening messages arrived, each more cruel than the last. They attacked her identity, her worth, her place in Thomas's world. Yet Sarah remained steadfast. She understood the intricate power dynamics of Thomas's social circle and knew that showing vulnerability would be her greatest mistake. Meanwhile, Rebecca continued her subtle campaign of psychological warfare, appearing at every event to deliver calculated, undermining remarks. Rebecca's unexpected visit to Thomas's office crackled with unspoken tension. She arrived with a carefully crafted facade of concern, her true intentions anything but innocent. "We need to talk," she began, her smile a calculated weapon. Thomas remained detached, barely looking up from his work. "Make it quick," he responded curtly. Rebecca's true objective emerged quickly: to undermine Sarah and create doubt. "Everyone knows Sarah doesn't belong in this world," she claimed, her words dripping with calculated malice. "She'll drag you down." Thomas's response was firm. "You're wrong," he stated, dismissing her attempts to manipulate him. Later that night, Thomas discovered the anonymous threatening letters Sarah had been hiding. Reading the cruel messages, he experienced an unexpected emotional response, genuine anger. He recognized the psychological warfare in the notes, understanding their deliberate cruelty. The next morning, Thomas confronted Sarah about the letters. Her initial response was defensive, revealing her vulnerability and pride. "It's none of your business," she insisted, trying to maintain her composure. But Thomas surprised her. "You are my wife," he said with unexpected intensity. "This affects me too." Their conversation exposed a shifting dynamic. For the first time, Sarah sensed Thomas might be seeing her as more than just a strategic arrangement. His protective stance suggested a growing connection that transcended their original contractual marriage. At a subsequent social event, Rebecca continued her subtle attacks, attempting to undermine Sarah's position among the elite. At the social event, Rebecca's passive-aggressive comment about Sarah's adaptation to their world was met with an unexpected response from Thomas. In a moment that stunned everyone present, he publicly defended Sarah with unprecedented intensity. "She is stronger than anyone here," he declared, his arm protectively around her. The room fell silent, witnesses to a side of Thomas they had never seen before, a man showing genuine respect and admiration. Sarah found herself overwhelmed by a complex mix of emotions. Thomas's defense felt different from his previous calculated actions. This wasn't about maintaining appearances, it seemed like a genuine moment of protection. When they returned home, her attempt to thank him was met with his firm assertion that he would not tolerate anyone disrespecting her. A subtle shift was occurring in their relationship, though neither was prepared to fully acknowledge its significance. The discovery of her pregnancy became a moment of profound personal crisis for Sarah. The 2 pink lines on the pregnancy test represented a terrifying, unexpected reality. Fear and uncertainty battled with an inexplicable, delicate thread of hope. Her life with Thomas had been a series of calculated moves and unexpected challenges, and a child was the last complication she had anticipated. Sarah's mind raced with potential scenarios of Thomas's reaction. Would he see the pregnancy as an inconvenience? An attempt to manipulate their contractual arrangement? Her fear of his potential response paralyzed her, making the simple act of sharing her news feel like navigating a minefield of potential emotional destruction. When Thomas returned home that day, Sarah's unusual demeanor immediately caught his attention. Finding her pale and contemplative in the garden, he sensed something significant was about to unfold. Her simple statement, "We need to talk," carried the weight of unspoken revelations, causing Thomas's expression to grow more rigid with anticipation. The moment felt suspended between potential transformation and potential destruction. Sarah's pregnancy represented more than just a biological fact. It was a potential turning point in their complex, unconventional relationship. The carefully constructed walls they had built around themselves were about to be challenged in ways neither could have predicted. The moment Sarah revealed her pregnancy, time seemed to stand still. Thomas's reaction was a complex tapestry of emotions: surprise, uncertainty, and a nascent sense of something profound he couldn't yet name. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice uncharacteristically soft. Sarah's response was resolute. "I am," she declared, her defensive posture revealing her vulnerability. Thomas began pacing, his meticulously planned world suddenly disrupted by this unexpected development. For a man who had always controlled every aspect of his life, the pregnancy represented a complete departure from his carefully constructed reality. "I'll have this baby," Sarah stated firmly, "but I don't expect anything from you. I don't want you to think I'm manipulating you." Her words struck Thomas deeply. He recognized her integrity, and the mere suggestion that she might be manipulative offended him. "This child is mine too," he responded with unexpected intensity. "I will take responsibility." In the days that followed, Thomas found himself navigating unfamiliar emotional terrain. The pregnancy began to crack the rigid walls he had built around himself, introducing a new perspective that challenged his long-held beliefs. For the first time in years, he started questioning the emptiness of his previous pursuits. Rebecca, ever the opportunist, saw the pregnancy as a chance to create discord. At a social event, she approached Thomas with calculated malice, her comments designed to sow doubt. "Congratulations," she said, her words dripping with insinuation about Sarah's motivations. But Thomas was changing. He saw through her manipulations, recognizing them as pathetically insignificant. The pregnancy was becoming more than just an unexpected complication. It was a transformative moment, slowly revealing a more human side to Thomas, a man beginning to understand the value of genuine connection over calculated revenge. That night, Thomas found Sarah in her room, her attention drifting away from the book in her hands. "Rebecca knows about the pregnancy," he stated bluntly. Sarah looked up, a mixture of surprise and concern crossing her face. Thomas sat beside her, his determination palpable. "She'll try to use this against us," he said, his voice steady and protective. For the first time, Sarah saw something different in Thomas, a genuine commitment that extended beyond his initial plan of revenge. The pregnancy had transformed their relationship, introducing possibilities neither had anticipated. The meeting with Rebecca was arranged in a secluded restaurant, carefully chosen to minimize potential public drama. Thomas arrived first, his analytical mind preparing for whatever manipulation Rebecca might attempt. When she entered, dressed to make an impression, Thomas realized something fundamental had changed within himself. Her previous allure no longer held any power over him. Their conversation was a delicate dance of unspoken tensions. Rebecca attempted to soften her approach, claiming a desire for honesty and redemption. Thomas remained unmoved, his responses cutting and direct. "If you truly cared," he challenged, "you wouldn't have betrayed me." For the first time, Rebecca's carefully constructed facade began to crack. Her attempts to rekindle their past connection fell flat against Thomas's newfound indifference. The power dynamics had shifted dramatically, with Thomas no longer willing to be manipulated by her emotional games. The meeting became a pivotal moment of closure. Thomas was no longer the man who could be easily hurt or controlled. The pregnancy and his growing connection with Sarah had fundamentally transformed him, offering a path to something more meaningful than revenge. The conversation between Thomas and Rebecca reached a critical turning point. Rebecca attempted to undermine Sarah, suggesting she was merely a convenient replacement. Thomas's response was swift and decisive, shutting down her manipulative tactics with unprecedented clarity. "You know what's funny?" Thomas said, his smile cold and knowing. "I thought I needed you. I believed your betrayal proved I wasn't good enough." His words cut through Rebecca's carefully constructed facade, revealing the profound transformation he had undergone. The obsession that once consumed him had dissolved, replaced by a newfound sense of self-understanding. Rebecca's final attempt to threaten Thomas by exposing the arranged nature of his marriage fell flat. Thomas's confidence was unshakable. "If you think you can threaten me," he stated coldly, "you're more desperate than I thought." His response made it clear that Rebecca's power over him was permanently broken. Returning to the mansion, Thomas found Sarah in the garden, her gentle care of the plants a stark contrast to the intense confrontation he had just experienced. When she noticed his tension, her concern was immediate and genuine. Thomas's response surprised her, a soft admission that they didn't have to face challenges alone. The moment marked a significant shift in their relationship. No longer was their connection purely transactional. Thomas was beginning to see Sarah as a true partner, someone who stood beside him rather than someone he could manipulate or control. The early morning light filtered through the curtains of the brown mansion, casting long shadows across the breakfast room. Sarah sat at the table, her fingers absently tracing the edges of a well-worn gardening magazine. Something felt different, a tension in the air that made her skin prickle with unease. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. Thomas's phone shattered the morning silence. His voice, sharp and urgent, caught Sarah's attention immediately. She watched as he stood, his body language tense, demanding answers about a leak. "How did this get to the press?" He barked into the phone, his free hand running through his hair in frustration. Sarah's heart began to race as Thomas ended the call and turned to her, his face a mixture of anger and worry. "Someone's leaked our contract to the media," he said, the words hanging heavy between them. Before she could respond, her own phone erupted with a flood of notifications. Messages, missed calls, and news links that made her blood run cold. The headlines screamed their private arrangement to the world. Sham marriage exposed. Magnate Thomas Brown's controversial contract with former gardener. Each word felt like a knife, cutting through the fragile trust they had been building. The articles were merciless, dissecting their relationship with cruel speculation and demeaning comments that reduced Sarah to nothing more than a transaction. "It was Rebecca," Sarah said quietly, a certainty in her voice that surprised even herself. Thomas nodded. "All signs point to her, but we'll handle this." His attempt to control the situation only ignited her anger further. "Handle it?" she repeated, her voice trembling with a mix of hurt and rage. "You think you can control what people are saying about me? About us?" When Thomas tried to approach her, Sarah stepped back, the distance between them more than just physical. "You knew this could happen," she accused, her words sharp with betrayal. "From the beginning, you've played with my life like I was just another piece on your chessboard." Thomas's plea of protection rang hollow. "I'll protect you and the baby no matter what it takes," he insisted, but Sarah saw through his words, letting out a bitter laugh. "Protect?" she shot back. "The only thing you've ever protected is your own ego." Without another word, Sarah turned and walked to her bedroom. Her hands shook as she pulled out a suitcase, methodically packing her clothes and essentials. She was leaving, running from the storm of publicity, from Thomas, from a life that had suddenly become unbearable. When Thomas found her, his voice was a mixture of concern and desperation. "What are you doing?" Sarah's response was simple and final. "I'm leaving." Thomas's voice cracked with desperation as he tried to stop Sarah. "You can't leave," he pleaded, taking a step closer. But Sarah was resolute, her eyes filled with a mixture of pain and determination. "I can't stay here," she responded, turning to face him fully for the first time. Her words were a raw confession of her shattered dreams. "All I ever wanted was a simple life, to care for my mother, to live quietly," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "But you dragged me into your world, exposed me, and now I'm nothing more than a target for public speculation." Thomas reached out, his voice softening. "I'll fix this," he insisted. "Trust me." The word hung in the air like a fragile thread, almost breaking under the weight of their past. "Trust?" Sarah's tears came freely now, streaming down her cheeks. "How can I trust you?" Her question echoed with the pain of betrayal, leaving Thomas speechless, unable to form a response. With determination, Sarah closed her suitcase. She walked past Thomas, her steps firm and purposeful. When he attempted to stop her, she stood her ground. "I need to think about my child and my dignity," she declared. "Here, I have neither." The front door of the mansion closed behind her, leaving Thomas alone with the emptiness of his choices. Days turned into a relentless storm of media scrutiny. The scandal consumed everything, destroying Thomas's carefully crafted public image, but he was consumed by only one thought: Sarah. His calls went unanswered, each missed connection a painful reminder of how he had destroyed something potentially beautiful. On a gray, rain-soaked morning, Thomas made a decision that would change everything. He drove to the modest apartment Sarah had rented in a humble neighborhood, a stark contrast to the luxury he was accustomed to. When Sarah opened the door, her surprise was quickly replaced by suspicion. Before she could send him away, Thomas began to speak. His words were heavy with emotion and genuine remorse. "I was wrong," he admitted. "From the beginning, I used you as part of a selfish plan that was unforgivable." His vulnerability caught Sarah off guard. "But you've changed everything," Thomas continued. "You are the strongest, most genuine person I've ever met, and for the first time in my life, I want something real. I want you." Sarah crossed her arms, her skepticism evident. Yet, there was something different in Thomas's approach, a raw honesty that had been missing before. "I don't expect you to forgive me right now," he said softly. "But I'm going to fight for you, for us." The silence between them was charged with unspoken emotions. Sarah studied him, her conflicting feelings playing across her face. Despite everything that had happened, she sensed a genuine transformation in Thomas. "This won't be easy," she finally said, her voice a mix of caution and hope. "I don't expect it to be," Thomas replied. "I just want the chance to try." A small sigh escaped Sarah's lips. For the first time since leaving the mansion, a spark of hope flickered to life. The truth had emerged, painful and raw, but now they had an opportunity to build something stronger than the lies that had defined their past. Outside, a light rain fell over the city. Thomas stood watching, no longer the man who believed he could control everything. Losing Sarah had taught him that rebuilding what he had broken would require more than words. It would demand genuine action and true change. In the weeks following their conversation, Thomas underwent a transformation unlike anything in his previous life. He stepped back from his usual world of corporate control, delegating responsibilities he once guarded obsessively. Every moment was now focused on one singular goal: proving to Sarah that his intentions were genuine and profound. Sarah found herself caught in an emotional whirlwind. Since Thomas's unexpected appearance at her apartment, something within her had begun to subtly shift. Despite her best efforts to maintain emotional distance, a small part of her heart wanted to believe in his sincerity. The walls she had carefully constructed were showing unexpected cracks. One quiet morning, Sarah received an invitation that would change everything. A handwritten envelope arrived, the familiar script instantly recognizable as Thomas's. The message was simple, yet intriguing. "I'd like you to be there tonight. I don't want to pressure you, but it's important to me. Thomas." Her curiosity battled with caution. After moments of hesitation, she decided to go. Driven by an inexplicable pull she couldn't fully understand, when Sarah arrived at the specified location, she was stunned. The public garden had been transformed into something magical. Soft lights illuminated carefully arranged flowers, and freshly painted benches created intimate spaces. A small stage stood at the center, surrounded by curious neighborhood residents who whispered and wondered about the unexpected event. Thomas stood on the stage, dressed in simple clothing that made him look vulnerable and human, a stark contrast to his usual polished appearance. His nervousness was palpable, something Sarah had never witnessed before. "Good evening," he began, his voice echoing through the microphone. The crowd fell silent, sensing something significant was about to unfold. Taking a deep breath, Thomas continued, "I want to speak from my heart, as honestly as I can." His eyes found Sarah in the front row, and for a moment, the entire world seemed to fade away. "For most of my life, I believed I could control everything," he admitted. "People, situations. I saw them as pieces to manipulate for my own goals. Because of that mindset, I made terrible, unforgivable mistakes." Sarah felt her heart racing, each word penetrating the protective barriers she had built around her emotions. "But then I met someone who showed me that life isn't a transaction," Thomas said, his vulnerability raw and genuine. "Sarah, you taught me that true strength lies in authenticity, that I don't need to hide my flaws to be worthy of something real." He paused, gathering courage for what would come next. I wronged you. I was selfish, arrogant, and blind to everything you represented. But now, all I want is a chance, not to fix what I've done, but to grow and be better. Thomas's words hung in the air, vulnerable and raw. I know I can't erase the past, he continued, but I want to build something real from here. The garden around them seemed to hold its breath, silent witnesses to this moment of transformation. Sarah felt tears streaming down her face, emotions overwhelming her defenses. Thomas gestured around the garden, his voice soft and meaningful. This is where we first met. Not literally, but symbolically. You entered my life with simplicity, beauty, and strength. I want this place to represent what we can build together. The crowd began to applaud, but Sarah heard nothing. As Thomas stepped off the stage and walked toward her, the world seemed to narrow to just the two of them. I know I can't ask you to forgive me easily, he said, standing directly in front of her. But if you give me a chance, I promise to do everything I can to be the man you deserve. Silence stretched between them. Sarah took a deep breath, processing the weight of his words. Thomas, she finally said, you hurt me in ways I can't even explain, but something has changed. You've changed. A glimmer of hope sparked in her eyes. Maybe we can try. Thomas's smile was immediate but tempered with humility. He understood this was just the beginning of a long journey. Months passed, and their relationship blossomed like the garden that had witnessed their reconciliation. The Brown Mansion's grounds, once a mere decorative backdrop, now told a story of transformation. Sarah lounged on a deck chair, her pregnant belly a testament to their shared future, surrounded by the vibrant colors of carefully tended flowers. Thomas sat beside her, a parenting book in his hands, a scene that would have been unimaginable months ago. His typically serious face now bore a look of nervous determination. You look more anxious than I am, Sarah teased, watching him nervously flip through the pages. I want to be prepared, he replied, a faint smile crossing his lips. I've made too many mistakes to risk not doing this right. Sarah reached out, squeezing his hand. The fact that you care already says so much, she said softly. Our child will be lucky to have you as their father. Her words touched something deep within Thomas. He knew the weight of his past mistakes still lingered, but he was committed to becoming a better man, for Sarah, for their child, and for himself. The peaceful moment was shattered a few days later when Sarah went into labor in the middle of the night. Despite all his preparations, Thomas couldn't mask his initial panic. His carefully rehearsed plans dissolved into a whirlwind of frantic action. He called the doctor while rushing her to the hospital, gripping her hand tightly, his composure giving way to pure, unfiltered emotion. The hospital corridor echoed with Sarah's determination and Thomas's barely contained anxiety. Breathe, Sarah, he urged, his voice trembling despite his attempts to sound calm. Everything's going to be fine. I am breathing, Sarah retorted, her tone a sharp mix of pain and irritation. You should try doing the same. Time seemed to stretch and compress in the delivery room. Thomas watched, both terrified and awestruck, as Sarah fought to bring their child into the world. Each moment was a testament to her strength, a quality he had come to deeply admire. Hours later, a newborn's cry broke through the tension. Nathan had arrived. The doctor handed the baby to Thomas, who stood momentarily frozen. This tiny human, his son, represented something he had never understood before. As he looked at Sarah, exhausted but radiating a profound joy, Thomas experienced a happiness completely untainted by ambition or ego. He's perfect, Thomas whispered, his voice thick with emotion, gently placing Nathan in Sarah's arms. In that single moment, everything Thomas had once valued, control, success, revenge, seemed insignificant compared to the family he had created. The months that followed marked a complete transformation. Thomas restructured his entire life, delegating work responsibilities he once guarded obsessively. Every evening was now dedicated to Sarah and Nathan, a commitment that would have been unimaginable in his previous life. Sarah, too, found her own path. With Thomas's unwavering support, she launched a small landscaping business, a dream she had long suppressed. Her passion bloomed alongside their relationship, creating a partnership built on mutual respect and love. Rebecca, realizing she had permanently lost her grip on Thomas, quietly faded from their lives. Her final attempts at manipulation were met with complete indifference, and she finally accepted her exclusion from their story. One peaceful afternoon, Thomas and Sarah walked through the garden, Nathan cradled in Thomas's arms. The baby gazed at the flowers with innocent wonder, while Thomas described each bloom as if sharing the most fascinating secrets of the universe. "Who would have thought you'd be so good with flowers?" Sarah teased, resting her head on Thomas's shoulder. "It's not about the flowers," Thomas replied, kissing the top of her head. "It's about what they mean to us." The garden, once a symbol of a relationship forged in self-interest, had transformed into a sanctuary of genuine love and redemption. For Thomas, each flower represented a conscious choice to change. For Sarah, they were living proof that even the most complicated stories could blossom into something beautiful. As the sun set, they sat together on the grass, Nathan sleeping peacefully in Sarah's arms. "Do you think he'll love flowers?" she asked softly. Thomas smiled. "He'll love them because he'll learn from the best." Sarah looked at him, no longer seeing the calculating man from their past, but someone who had chosen growth, vulnerability, and love. Their life wouldn't be perfect, but they now possessed the strength to face any challenge together. Nathan was more than a new beginning. He was living proof that after the fiercest storms, something beautiful could always bloom. As the sun sets on their garden, a symbol of their incredible journey, Thomas and Sarah realized that their story is more than just a tale of revenge or redemption. It's a testament to the extraordinary power of human transformation. From a relationship built on cold calculation to a love that bloomed against all odds, their path shows us something profound. People can change. Thomas, once a man who saw the world as a chessboard of manipulation, now understands that true strength isn't about control, but about vulnerability, growth, and love. Sarah, a woman who could have been broken by circumstances, became the catalyst of an incredible transformation. She didn't just survive, she flourished. Her quiet strength dismantled Thomas's carefully constructed walls, revealing the humanity hidden beneath his calculated exterior. Their son, Nathan, becomes more than just a child. He's a living promise, a symbol of hope, of second chances, of the beautiful unexpected that can emerge from life's most complicated moments. Every flower in their garden tells a story of healing, of choosing love over bitterness, of finding connection in the most unexpected places. This isn't just their story, it's a reminder that our past doesn't define us, that healing is possible, that love can emerge from the most unlikely beginnings. As they sit together watching Nathan play among the flowers, the very place where their unexpected journey began, Thomas and Sarah understand a simple yet profound truth. After the fiercest storms, something beautiful can always bloom. Some stories are written in boardrooms and business contracts. Their story was written in a garden, with patience, understanding, and the courage to choose love over revenge. To everyone watching, remember your story isn't over. No matter how broken, how calculated, how hopeless things might seem, there's always a chance for something beautiful to grow. Thank you for being part of their incredible journey.